Hi, I'm Shelley, a business analyst, and I wanted to share with you a tool we developed in one of my workplaces. It's a way of running a lessons learned workshop online. Some people might know a lessons learned workshop as a post-implementation review or a retrospective. So what I'm going to talk about today, very briefly, I'm going to talk about what I mean by these workshops and why we have them, and then about how this structure got created that I'm talking about. The bulk of this video is going to be walking through what we came up with. What we're talking about here are discussions with all the stakeholders, so that is the business side and the project team side in a project. It's held at the end of a project, so we're not talking about a regular retrospective at the end of each sprint in an agile project, for example, although we definitely use some of the same tools, as you will see. They provide an opportunity to reflect and, most importantly, to learn from the experiences, which can then benefit future projects. This model came into being when I was working in a large group of IT project professionals who provided services to the business side of the organisation. One of the very large projects was coming to a close, and there had been a lot of changes in that project over an extended period of time. It was towards the end of our long lockdowns, and so everyone was working remotely at the time. The project manager approached me as someone who hadn't had any involvement really in that project, about how to bring this to a close and make sure that the experience was able to inform future projects. In the discussion, we came up with this model, which I ran. I facilitated the workshop, and then we started making it a practice as each project closed. We started rotating the facilitation around our BAs, making sure that the facilitator was someone external to the project, meaning that the business analysts on the project could participate with everyone else. It's a very simple structure. We start by agreeing the attendees between the facilitator and the project manager, although the project manager will actually be one of the participants. When we send out the email invitation, we include a request for participants to reflect before the workshop on a few simple questions about what they have learned from being on the project. We also send a link to a simple poll asking people to enter words that they associate with the project. So I'm now going to step through what happens in the actual workshop. So here it is. In order to get people to focus, there are a couple of slides very briefly presented, just to remind people what the project was initially trying to achieve. We had a much prettier graphic for the journey so far, but it was proprietary, so this is just to give you the idea. Again, it's very briefly presented. All the people here know exactly what happened on the project. When presenting this slide, I will tend to tell a story about a time that finding a post-implementation review report from a previous project helped me realise that the project I was currently on was falling into some of the same traps that had caused problems previously. This knowledge allowed us to navigate the new project much more productively, and I'm sure most business analysts will have a story like this. Perhaps more important on this slide is the right column, where we say what this is not. It's important to make sure that this doesn't fall into a finger pointing exercise, which is completely unproductive, doesn't help anyone. So that's the purpose of this slide, is to make sure that doesn't occur. This word cloud is what we do with that poll that we send out ahead of time, and people can even add to it at this point in the workshop just on their mobile phones or on their computers. It gives people a quick snapshot of how people have viewed the project. It's a good way to get those sort of juices flowing. We don't really have much conversation on this, it's just kind of a bit of a point in time, quick look. Some project managers have actually found it helpful to include that word cloud in the PIR report. And then at this point, I move to a simple sticky note exercise. I find idea boards, which is a free software, is a great tool. Sometimes Miro can be good, or I've even just used the Zoom whiteboard. An advantage of using idea boards, and I think Miro as well, is that you can export it out to a spreadsheet if you want. So this particular one that I'm showing you now is a simple what did we like, learn, lack, and long for. I've also used the balloon retrospective. Other BAs in workshops I was a participant in used the ship retrospective or the stop, start, continue. I find it helpful to show the link just on this PowerPoint slide, and then I stop sharing my screen because people can, by going to the link, they can actually see the board themselves, and it gets confusing if they've got the Zoom meeting that's showing my screen because then they're trying to sort of change the Zoom meeting rather than on their board. So it's easy just to stop sharing altogether, and then what people are looking at is the shared screen that they can then the shared board that they can then manipulate themselves. So yeah, so that's what we would do. And that's the real guts of the session. This is what you're going to spend most of the time most of the time on, as people add their sticky notes, and then they can also endorse other people's notes by voting on them. Spend quite a bit of time just doing that, the adding and everything, and then later you again spend quite a bit of time talking it through and encouraging people to be really open, to try and draw out any of those things. You may occasionally need to remind people that we're not here to point the finger and all the rest of it. But all this is, whichever way you do it, is a prompt for conversation. We have found that these types of tools can be great for getting people to open up. And it's really as simple as that. That's how we do it. So as I said, this is a tool that I've found useful in the past, and I just hope that by sharing, that's helpful to you as well. Thank you.